I welcome today's August gathering to talk about our theme, which is survival of the fittest, which is adopting policies and technologies to grow back post-pandemic for SMEs of steel sector. We are indeed very grateful that Joint Plan Committee has kindly come forward and they are the co-organizer of this webinar. And we have with us Srimati Raskia Chaube, Additional Secretary, Ministry of Steel, Government of India. She holds number of portfolios and I'm really grateful, madam, that you could make time for us and address the August gathering today to who are participating in the webinar. Without wasting time, madam, I request you to kindly address the participants.
And thank you, Steel Scenario Journal, for organizing this webinar. I think with this in a post-COVID scenario, I think this is one of the very interesting webinars which is being organized, and especially for the secondary steel sector. Now, as you said, the topic which you just mentioned is survival of the fittest. I think that is what you're talking about. I was just thinking that when Darwin talked about it, what he meant was not people who are really the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but people who can really manage change. Now, with this pandemic, we are undergoing a kind of a turmoil, undergoing a change which is really unprecedented. And I think everyone needs to now gear up to meet this challenge and to come out with some way of surviving it. And I think the steel sector is also equally impacted by the pandemic, and we really have to ensure that it comes out of the struggle which is going through right now, especially the secondary steel sector. Now, Ministry of Steel is really concerned about the secondary steel sector, and I would like to share with you that the Honorable Minister has held several rounds of meeting with the associations, not only the associations which are for the nationwide pan-India associations, even the associations which are for the various states to do with secondary steel. And whatever points emerge, we have taken action on them. But before coming to that, let me mention that secondary steel is what contributes around 40% of the production of the country as of now. We have the induction furnace route, people coming in, there's an electric arc furnace, then we have the rollers and re-rollers rolling then we have the DRI sponge iron. The total number of units, which I think Mr. Bandyopadhyay was mentioning, are around 300,000 units we are talking about. And the most important part of the secondary steel is that they are huge employment generators. Now, they produce value-added products and special steel, which generally are required in very small volumes, and the bigger ones are not willing to take them on. And also, they meet the local demands of the secondary steel is of paramount importance in to the country because of the employment it generates, the value-added products it makes, because those are required in small numbers. Economies of scale don't work for the bigger ones, and also because it meets the local demand for the steel hinterland. So that is why the secondary steel becomes really important. And we have been issuing several letters time and again. Like, there were issues whereby people used to prefer the product of a blast furnace route over a secondary steel. So we have issued letters in the past trying to tell people, trying to tell organizations that it's the final certification by the BIS which is important and not the route. So no, basically what I'm trying to say is that Ministry of Steel is very alive to the issues and are being addressed time and again as the issues are brought to our notice. Now, during the COVID period, I won't go into the entire details. As I mentioned, that minister interacted with a lot of associations. After that, we classified the problems and the challenges which are being faced and are likely to be faced by the steel sector into 6 buckets. The first were the regulatory issues which we would face. The second bucket would be the raw material related issues which we would face. Third was the logistic issues. Then fourth, I can say, is the working capital related issues. Then demand generation related, and lastly, trade related. So we categorized all our problems into these buckets, and thereafter we further did a little bit of a classification. Whatever emerged, I'll share a few of them, the problem areas with you. We clubbed them into again 3 categories. We tried to tell before taking up with the various ministries of the Government of India. We again tried to break them into issues which, if acted upon, would have an impact on the revenue of the government. What would not impact the revenue of the government would just defer their revenue or things which we wanted was simply for ease of doing business. So, we classified it in such a way so that government would find it easy to act on that. So wherever the revenue would be an issue, they would possibly, to keep it for the thing. So we did the detailed exercise. Now, like coming amongst these categories, a few things I would just like to mention, like which we took up, and one was about the moratorium, which yes, the government has already agreed to that to give provide a moratorium on the loans and the working capital. Then we had taken up the matter of providing additional working capital in terms of loans and concessions to the steel sector per se and the secondary steel especially. Then we also talked about the grace period of working capital, including non-convertible debentures and other working liquidity issues. After that, we also talked about waiver of fixed charges. Now, this is an issue which everyone raised. Like, if there are fixed charges pertaining to utilities like water, electricity, which could be waived off, these were issues we have taken up with the state government, with the concerned ministries, and we hope that something could be acted upon. Similarly, for demand enhancement, which really impacts the steel sector and the complete value chain of steel, we have strongly recommended that the national infrastructure pipeline, whatever projects are there in that, should be expedited. And this was a demand by every association, whether it was ISA, whether it was the secondary steel. So this we are taking up time and again, so that as and when the infrastructure pipeline moves, definitely there will be demand generation, and in turn, it will benefit the steel sector. Then we have also talked about accelerating the government procurement. This basically is again, I'll come to the 5 tranches which were announced by the government, in which 200 crores and below would be open to the domestic suppliers only, and definitely we hope it will benefit the secondary steel players. So we have talked about accelerating the government demand. In fact, our minister, who also happens to be the minister for PNG, he has ensured that whatever demands are there, they can be kind of accelerated. They could be advanced, and so that there is work in the market, there's demand in the market, and in turn the economy moves. So these are some of the things we have acted upon. And then another thing is like those long-term repo operation scheme, which the RBI had announced. We were watching and we found that not much was coming to the steel sector. So we have taken up with the RBI and with the thing, if this could be some steel benefit to the steel sector, could also be open in that. There have been challenges in terms of NCLT, but we have tried to highlight that the haircut to the banks have been the least from the steel sector side. If you see vis-a-vis the textile and other sectors, I mean, we did go into NCLT, but we came out of it the fastest with the least haircut to the banks. So all these things, the Ministry of Steel makes it a point to highlight, and because that is how we feel that working capital related issues can get addressed. Now, as far as trade-related issues are concerned, there is the MEIS, which is under the process of being revised, and there's a remission of duties and taxes on export production. Now, this is going to benefit the primary steel sectors, but this would in turn benefit the secondary steel. Now, if they are able to get concessions, obviously they make steel at a more competitive price, and steel is a major ingredient and the raw material for the downstream. So we are looking at the larger picture, and so that all this can be addressed. So basically, I just trying to show you the challenges and what Ministry of Steel has done to deal with the challenges. Now, coming to what the Government of India has done, and you people are aware. Now, one thing which is of the first tranche, if you see, was mainly for the MSMEs. Now, you people would be aware, but I just, for the sake of, for those who may not remember, I mean, there are 4 or 5 things which were announced in that. One was collateral-free automatic loans of rupees 3 lakhs to MSMEs. Then 20,000 crore subordinate debt provision for stressed MSMEs. Then 50,000 crore equity infusion into MSMEs. And then tenders for government procurement up to rupees 200 only for the domestic MSMEs. Now, initially, it was felt that the definition of MSME, which was enhanced, that is 50 crores of investment and 250 crores of turnover, may not cover the entire gamut of the small enterprises. I do agree with that, and for which there have been a lot of requests from various sources that instead of having both the criteria, that is investment and turnover, it could be investment or turnover, so that it can help. So we are taking up that matter. But we did a little analysis and we realized that amongst the sponge iron units, the 318 which Ranjan in his database has indicated, 60 would get covered with under this present scheme because they have an investment which is less than 50 and turnover of 250. Now the balance still need to get covered. So basically, it's the standalone units which get covered and the integrated ones are not getting covered. So we are concerned about that. Similarly, for the induction furnace and electric arc furnace units, out of the 1128 number which we have, around 730 various tranches which have been announced by the Ministry of Finance. And wherever it is helpful to us, I mean, that's I was sharing with that with you. And on the apart from the other tranches which have been announced, talk about affordable rental housing complexes. They talk about infrastructure, agricultural infrastructure, defense infrastructure. So all those, indirectly, all of them impact the steel sector. And obviously, the thing will get passed on to our secondary steel players also. Now, one thing which was announced in the tranches was about the commercial mining, coal and others. Now, this I feel will go a long way in helping our secondary steel sector. Now, see, if coal availability and coal gasification is available, now it will increase the capacity utilization of our sponge iron units, which currently is at 65, because that is one of the major challenges we face. So I think this will go a long way in helping our secondary steel, the sponge iron people, and also it will obviously automatically result in job creation. Now, similarly, availability, if coal is available in abundance and if there's mining, it will definitely result in reduced cost of power and steel. Now, these again, as I mentioned, are basic raw materials for our downstream. Now, we expect that these major decisions which have been taken by the Government of India in the mining sector, especially for coal, will go a long way in helping our MSMEs. And this has a larger ramification which may directly not be, the ministry, the MSME may not be concerned, but you must know that currently we are importing around 180 million ton of thermal coal. Now, with this provisions coming in, out of the 180, 50 will have to be, and we'll have to continue to import because some of it is imported coal is required in the coastal region for various reasons. Now, balance 120 million tons can get substituted, and that results in a saving to the country of around 80,000 crores. Now, this is a huge effort which has been made by the Government of India, and I think that the impact will be very visible across the value chain. So this is now apart from these tranches, another issue is liquidity issue, which I would just like to share with you. Now, Ministry of Steel along with Department of Commerce has been working very closely to work out how the EPC MSMEs, or any MSME for that matter, can be helped out in terms of being given competitive steel. Now, there's a scheme which we have come up, is called the export parity price for EPC. I think you have some EPC representatives present today, you said in your program today. So they would be aware that all the ISPs have agreed that they will be willing to supply certain product categories like HR coils, CR coils, and 3-4 other product categories to the EPC MSMEs at the price at which they export, not the landed price of it. Now, though the quantity which they'll be given to start with is 1 million across for the whole country for the MSMEs, but this is a good beginning, and I think it should help MSMEs in a big way. Similarly, SAIL has also come up with a policy by which it will offer discount to all the MSME units, the downstream, the ancillaries which will come there, which are co-located to their with the ISPs. So this is another step to improving the liquidity in those regions and helping people to come out of their problem. Because and we have just conducted a little bit of a survey about what is the how much debt is leveraged by the secondary steel players. So we found that because most of the balance sheets of the secondary is not available in the open platform. So whatever is available, based on that, around 39,000 crores is what they have leveraged from the banks. So we are in dialogue with the banking sector to ensure that this number goes up, because as compared to the ISPs who are exposed to around 2.85 lakh crores, here the number is pretty small and rightly so, but it definitely we do. And why I'm giving you these figures is so that you appreciate that all facts are in the knowledge of the ministry, and we do address them as and when they're required. One more scheme I would like to say, which is very close to our minister, is the steel cluster policy. Some of you would be aware that he recently launched there's a program which he called Purvodaya. He launched it in Calcutta in January this year. Basically, what Purvodaya is all about is that we are aiming and we are envisaging to become we have a capacity of 300 million ton by 2030, of which we expect that 200 million ton will come from the east. Now, if that has to happen, then we need to have a three-pronged approach. One, there should be a more greenfield or brownfield ISPs or integrated steel plants which should come up. Secondly, we think that there should be steel clusters for value-added steel, for ancillaries, for downstream, for capital goods. Those need to come up in various places. And third, improved processing. So, and briefly, I just mentioned that we are working on all the three. And as a pilot, we have chosen Kalinganagar. Now, Kalinganagar is very strategically placed in terms of logistics and other things. And we are trying to ensure that we create a model project steel cluster. This is only meant for the secondary steel sector, for the MSM. We are trying to create an ecosystem where testing facilities are available, the common testing facilities. We are trying to make skill development centers available so that the skilled manpower is available, and trying to ensure that power and water is available at a very, very reduced cost, at cost which is very competitive, so that these people are able to compete. So, I mean, just to mention that this policy is basically to give impetus to the secondary industry. Now, while we are thinking of one in Kalinganagar, similarly, we are also trying to work more clusters, maybe near the demand center or near the ISP. So this one, what we are talking is a demand center, a cluster close to an ISP. We are also trying to work out others, so which will be slowly announced. So a few other things which the ministry is doing is to work on a scrapping policy. Scrap is one of the major ingredients for our ESC and IF route. And we find that at the moment we are importing around 6 to 8 million tons. And with the scrapping policy in place, we want to bring about scrap collection in a very organized manner so that this can help our secondary steel sector especially. So I think in brief, these are the various issues which we have done, which would in the long run at the secondary steel sector. And before I close, all I would want to say is that this is the right time for us to kind of reassess what are our drawbacks. I think if I am to see the secondary steel sector, I feel that they still need technological advancement. They need process improvement. They need good testing facility and energy efficient technology. I think this is a time when digitalization is going to be the norm. And I think secondary steel sector should try to adopt as much of digitalization and try to become more competitive. And with this, I wish you all the best. And thank you for calling me. And I hope your panel discussion go off the direction you are trying to collate information. And I would be very happy to see whatever information you get during the thing. And if we can work on something, I'll be very happy.